Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be here this morning and to be able to speak to you about strategy. Strategy is a very interesting topic. It can be a very complicated topic. So here's what I would like to do today. I'm going to start just by giving you a very short overview of GE Energy. But then I'll start talking about strategy. The first part I'd like to cover is why is strategy important? And I'm going to try to convince you that strategy for the leadership team of the business is probably one of the most important things you have to get right. Then I'm going to go over what some of the best thinkers about strategy, how they define strategy, and I'll try to give you some examples of company strategies that make a real difference. And my hope there is to convince you that strategy is not just about which market you pick or which product you go after or how you price. It's something that's much broader than that and much more important. Then I'm going to show you the tools, just a few of the tools that GE Energy uses to think about strategy. So I'll show you some of those tools and talk about why we use them. And then I'll close with, I'm going to show you this page, the one page actually that every business in GE Energy has to create to talk about strategy to make sure we're aligned. Okay, so that's sort of the agenda. If you go to the next. As he said, GE Energy is a huge business, $45 billion, made up of three big P&Ls. But underneath those P&Ls are 100 different business units at the bottom, tier 3 P&Ls. There's 100 units. Some of them serve very big markets, power generation, $10 billion market for us. But some of them are quite small, $30 million market segments. In some places we have product leadership. In some places we are far behind the competitors. So we span the breadth of all the different possibilities and positions you can have as a business. So we're looking at all the kinds of strategies you can have as a leader in a business, in the market segment, but also as a distant follower, and how do you play and make money when you are not the leader. So I'm going to try to give you some examples on both sides of that equation. Okay, so if you go to the next slide. Now, Borders. You all know Borders. It was a bookstore. It went bankrupt because it failed to see that book delivery would go over the internet. Kodak went bankrupt because it failed to adapt to digital photography. Blockbuster went bankrupt because it failed to adapt to mail deliveries of movies as opposed to going to the store. Kmart went bankrupt because Walmart figured out that a lot of small stores could give you the economies of scale that a big store had. These were all failures of strategy. I'll talk a little more about what they were also failures of, but they're all failures of strategy. But they are the most overt failures of strategy. They're the failures where the business is so broken at the end that nobody even wants to buy them. Most failures of strategy don't show up so overtly. They show up in not meeting your goals and objectives for profitability. Most of the time, businesses get acquired when they fail. And if you're a company like yours or you're a company like GE, when the business fails, you give it another chance, you put more money in, or you close it, or you may sell it. Those are the normal things that we do. And most cases are like that. There are 40,000 mergers and acquisitions in the world every year. A lot of them are because businesses don't have good strategies. Now, a lot of companies have great strategies. Okay? Starbucks is one that's often cited. Their strategy was not to build a lot of coffee stores. Their strategy was to give you a place that was your home away from home. That was the strategy. It wasn't to make coffee. It was to give you a place to go to sit. Apple is always talked about as a great strategy. You know, they changed how you buy music. But the interesting thing about Apple that they did, and it applies to a lot of industrial companies, is that they executed what people call a keystone strategy, a platform strategy. They made it so every other company who wanted to play had to pay them a little bit of money, right? The apps they sell, the songs they sell, everything that they sell, somebody else invents, and they siphon off a little bit of money off of every one of those. And it's made them the most valuable company in the world, executing this platform keystone strategy. IBM, okay, so Apple's a great example of a company that's in B2C, and companies that are in B2B hate to look at B2C. But I would tell you that the strategy that Apple executed, companies do the same thing in the B2B space. And that's why when you think about strategy, you can't just think about what industrial companies do. You have to also look at what the commercial companies do, because some of the things they do can teach you how to be better in the B2B space. IBM's a great example of another company that executed a great strategy. They changed from a product business to a service business based on a strategy. Okay? Now, I'd like to give you an example from a company inside of GE Energy. If you go to the next slide. This is a company, we have a company, they make big CapEx equipment. Okay? And successful, going along, making money. And when you go and look at what they sell, they served a market where there were a lot of big global competitors, and there was a market, some local competitors, so it's not uncommon in the industrial space. If you look at the customer base they sold to price buyers, okay, people who bought only on price, and they sold to technology buyers, people who bought great technology. Now, normally, you don't find companies that sell based on value and a lot of technical support. Those companies usually have bigger base costs, and they can't afford to sell to the price buyer, the lowest cost buyer. So why was this happening? Okay? It was this company priced based on cost. And what was going on was the factory had some sweet spots, places where they were very efficient at making product. And those products, they would sell everything based on cost, a markup over cost. And those products they would sell to the price buyers, okay? Because they were low cost. Now, they had some salesmen that were in the company a long time, very technical. And those salesmen were selling to the technology buyer based on value. Okay? Same company. This company would have liked to sell more to the value buyer because the margins were better. But they didn't have enough money to do it, so they couldn't add the people. So what's wrong with the picture, right? See, they could have decided to take the products that they were the most efficient at, to sell them based on value. They would have had a lot more money. They could have made the investments to go after the technology buyer. Now, nobody in the management team said, I'm going to sell to the price buyer based on price, and I'm going to sell to the technology buyer based on technology. Nobody said that because nobody had a strategy. They were executing the business based on years and years of history, on decisions made over a long period of time. So nobody actually said, this is the strategy I want to execute. Okay? Now, maybe it was a good strategy, but I would propose to you that if they sat down, they probably would have figured out that they shouldn't sell their most cost-effective product for the lowest possible price. Okay? That if somebody actually sat down, they would have figured out that they would have had a better strategy selling their products based on the value, getting more margin, and maybe going after the technology buyer and leaving the price buyer behind. Okay? It was a failure strategy because there was no strategy. So go to the next slide. So let me take you through, I want to make believe, want you to pretend that you are, you run an apple stand on the side of the road. You have a little apple farm, and you run your apple stand. Okay? I understand up the road there's a village that actually does this, and I asked the name, and I can't remember the name of it, or I'd use it. So you come out every morning, and you go out and you compete. You open up your apple stand, you put all your apples out, you wait for people to come, and you're selling. In the 10 other apple stands that are down the road are all out there. Everybody's working hard every day, making sure the apples are there, delivered.